Welcome to the SLP Stress Management Podcast, your place to manage stress, reduce the risk of burnout, and find more balance in your life in and out of being an SLP. I'm your host, Jessie Andrix, and in today's episode, you're going to learn a technique you can use using your breath and your hand to take a pause and reset when you're feeling drained. You're also going to get a chance to take a few deep breaths and notice your thoughts as they ping in and as they leave. And we're also going to dive into the difference between checking out and checking in when it comes to actually managing your stress and taking care of yourself. Let's dive right in. Welcome to your wellness tip of the week. So this wellness tip is a really great one to use when you want to take a pause and you want to do some breathing, but you also need like a guide or some tactile cues beyond just take a few breaths and feel better. So this one uses your hand. So you trace along each finger as you breathe to help you kind of feel the body and to give you something to do as you're breathing, which will help you be more present and really get that full break and pause away from all the other thoughts that are bombarding you. So here's what you do. Bring your index finger of one hand to the base of your thumb on the other hand. Take a deep breath in as you trace up your thumb, and then exhale as you trace down. Inhale as you trace up your index finger. Exhale as you trace down. Inhale as you trace up your middle finger. Exhale as you trace down. Inhale, trace the index finger. Exhale, trace it down. Inhale, trace up your pinky finger. And exhale, trace down the side of your hand. So taking those 5 breaths, and you can take this slower at your own pace if you'd like, but taking those 5 breaths to take a time out, to sit back, to pause, take a break, and to have that focus and that guide as you breathe. So give it a try and let me know how it goes. Send me a message over on Instagram at Jessie Andrix or email jessie@jessieandrix.com and let me know your experience and how this breath works for you. And now a word from this week's sponsor. One of my favorite ways to restore and decompress after a long day is to settle down with a good book and a warm beverage. This little moment of bliss, this little moment of quiet to balance out all the other parts of the day. My favorite beverages are something nice and warm, like a cup of tea or some hot lemon water, or if I'm wanting to be extra cozy and I'm really, wanting a coffee or a latte of some kind, but I don't want the caffeine in the moment or a total sugar bomb, then I will go to something that is nice and frothy and creamy and hits all of those vibes. And my favorite one is the Sleepy Time Latte from Clevr Blends. So this comes with powdered tea that you just add water to, and it already has everything mixed into it. If you froth it up, it gets really creamy and it feels like this really fancy latte at home, but without any of the caffeine. So this contains herbs that are meant to help you sleep and adaptogens that are meant to help with stress and just some really delicious, cozy, and yummy flavors. So if you would like to decompress and unwind and take it to another level of coziness, you can try the Sleepy Time Latte from Clevr Blends or any of their other teas or coffees at the link below for $20 off your first order of $40 or more. So hit that link, check it out, and enjoy a cozy evening. Let's take a moment to pause and meditate. Find yourself in a comfortable seat. So it can be sitting on a cushion, on a yoga mat, on your couch, or in your office chair. Wherever you are, just take a seat. If you'd like, you can cross your legs, or you could sit with your feet on the floor, but make contact with your bottom into whatever seat you are in. And from there, feel like you're rooting down, you're anchoring here. And then from the crown of your head, lift taller. So without growing rigid through your spine, just think of creating space, lifting the rib cage off the waist a little lift through the chest so you have room to breathe. Let your hands rest in your lap, shoulders down away from your ears, and if you can, close your eyes. And just begin to bring your awareness to your breath. The breath is always there, so it's something that we can turn our focus to when we need something to focus on. And during meditation, we can use the breath sometimes to change it, sometimes to just focus on, or to check in. So today, just use the breath as your focal point. Noticing your inhales and your exhales. Just observing without any judgment. Just noticing each breath in and each breath out. And as you do this, you might notice that you've drifted off, that you've had a thought pull you away, and that led to another thought and another, and suddenly you've gone down this long train of thoughts. That's okay. As soon as you realize it, come back to your breath. And when it happens again, come back to the breath. And even if this happens instantly, over and over again, it doesn't mean that you are incapable of meditation or that you are doing it wrong. This is the meditation. This is the practice. The noticing, observing, and coming back with awareness. So stay here and breathe. And notice if the mind wanders. And then come back to your breath again. Over and over. Come back to the breath one more time. And when you're ready, just get back to your own breathing, your own pattern. Come back to the space around you. And blink the eyes open, completing your meditation practice today. So anytime you need to, you can drop into the breath and just come back to it time and time again, knowing that this is the practice. Thank you so much for joining in today. There is a big truth about most adults and most SLPs or SLP programs. They are not taught stress management. I have spent more time than I'd really like to admit scrolling mindlessly through social media, wasting possibly hours of my evening, or like watching shows without really watching them, just kind of like zoning out or not even really enjoying the show but having it on, or combining the two and scrolling social media while I watch the show just so I wouldn't have to do anything else because I was stressed, and that's what I thought might help. As an adult and as an SLP, you get to make decisions. You get to help others to thrive, and you have a handy-dandy master's degree. So it seems like you should be able to do something as simple as figure out how to not feel so stressed all the time. And that is why it is so infuriating and so stressful, because it's really, really hard. And the skills may not be there because they were never taught. And it's not our fault. Most of us are not taught what to actually do about stress. We either try and figure it out on our own and think, okay, if I'm stressed, let's do something that's not stressful. Or we model what we've seen others do, and they probably were thinking, okay, if I'm stressed, let's do something that's not stressful, like go watch a TV show for a while and just check out for the evening. And honestly, most of us are taught in grad school it gets better when you graduate and you're in the field doing it your own way mantra, only to find that the stress just shifts, if not increases, once you're in the field. So without a lot of tools or knowledge about what to do about stress besides suck it up, buttercup, it can be easy to lean into the first simplest thing, checking out each night after work. Stress usually comes with a side of mental exhaustion, if not at first, then as it builds over time. This mental exhaustion can make it feel like there's nothing better than to sit on the couch, saddle up with your favorite wine or Diet Dr. Pepper, grab a bag of snacks, and binge watch your way through your favorite Netflix show. Sometimes doing this late at night after you get the kids to bed and straighten the house and like really dive into that exhaustion. And it seems like a good fix. You check out for a little bit, not think about stress, and then feel less stressed. But ask yourself this: does it work? Like, has this worked so far? So once in a while, if you do this, then your answer might be yes, I feel so much better after an occasional couch night. But if this is routine, you might be noticing that the stress is still there and possibly growing. This is what can happen when you check out versus check in. So how can you tell which you're doing and what can you do instead? Okay, think of it like this. Checking out is equal to avoidance. So when you're checking out, you're doing things that help you to completely avoid the stress you are feeling and facing. And again, that sounds pretty good, right? Like, hey, there's stress there, I'm going to avoid it. I'm not going to interact with it. I am not going to engage with it. I'm going to ignore it, avoid it. It's not happening. So this is an avoidant habit. And it usually is used because you're so mentally drained and exhausted that the idea of doing one more thing is too much. And so this allows you to check out for a little bit, right? It allows you to say, I'm not going to engage with this. I'm going to go do this other thing. Maybe binging a show or mindlessly scrolling social media so that you're not engaging or thinking about the stress. So once in a while, this is so needed and can help when you've had one of those days where just the worst of the worst happens, right? Where it's just a really hard day, or it's just so many things back to back to back that you've had no time to decompress, no time to process anything, and all you can think of doing is not having to take care of yourself or anyone else. Just sitting down, being supported, by the sofa, and just being there. It gives you a tiny bit of reprieve, even for a few moments. And so that's okay once in a while, right? But it becomes an issue and can add to stress when it becomes your usual go-to, when this becomes your most nights of the week habit. So checking out doesn't do anything for stress because you're not engaging in it, right? So if you're avoiding it and ignoring it and not engaging with it, not bringing some sort of an awareness to it, then you can't manage it, reduce it, or let it go because you're pretending that it's not there. You're stepping away from it, not to find a way to work through it, but to say, that's not happening. Not going to deal with that right now. And so it doesn't help manage it. What it does do is give it space to continue to build or grow. Because if you think of anything that you kind of avoid for a while, the stress surrounding it, the tension around it, only builds and builds. Think of an email that you really need to reply to. And you're not sure right away what you want to say. And so you say, I'll do that later. I'm just going to just set that aside. And you set it aside and you go about your day. But then that's it's lingering there in the background and you're trying to think of I really need to reply to that. I really need to reply. And then it's it becomes this mountain, right? It becomes this huge thing that you're dreading doing. And there's so much more stress around it than there was to begin with. And then when you actually go and do it, it maybe takes you 5 minutes and then you're done and then the whole thing is over. So by avoiding your stress, you're allowing it to keep growing and to add more pressure behind it. So it makes it even bigger and more stressful once you eventually just have to face it. So that's what checking out does. It's this temporary relief that once in a while can be really helpful because it gives you that reprieve and then you're okay, now I can go face this. But when we're doing it every night, we're never giving ourselves the chance to face it. So the opposite of this is checking in. And checking in is equal to awareness. So when you're checking in, you're consciously doing an activity that helps you to reflect, check in on yourself, to see how you're doing, and to meet your needs in that moment, even when it's really difficult to do and acknowledge. So this is some kind of an activity that brings awareness to the stress that you are feeling, and then does something to help you move through it or shift out of it. So stress is your brain's response to a potential threat or something that it considers to be negative. And this could be something huge. It could be something small. And your brain is going to acknowledge that. And then once it starts to acknowledge it, it triggers the stress response. And the stress response stays fired up. And your brain notices that and continues to look for more stress. And so if you don't do something to move through that and to shift out of it, it's going to stay turned on and your brain's going to stay focused on that. So maybe you do like a journaling activity, or you do some like moving your body or like shaking it out, or you find some quiet, or you do a meditation practice or breathing practice to help you to decompress and to turn down that response. It's not always easy to do, but it's what helps you to reduce the stress response in your brain and rewire it to not get fired up as much when new stressors arrive. And then it also helps your brain to shift out of being so focused on all the potential stressors that you might find. So checking in faces the stress because it's already there, and it brings some awareness to it. So from there, you're able to see what you need in that moment to work through it a little bit better. It's not about finding a solution, but about shifting your brain and body out of stress mode. So it's not always easy to do. And sometimes you may notice that you end up feeling really overwhelmed because that's what you're feeling, or you end up, crying, or you end up writing out this whole thing, or you end up just sitting and breathing for a while until you can feel yourself come back to a steadier state. Whatever it might be, it might not always be easy to do, but it's what's going to actually help you to work into it, to work through it, right? You've got to dive into it to keep going through it. And this is what's going to help you manage stress more and build resilience to it later. So I promise I'm not saying throw away your TV, delete all social media. Heck no, I love both of those things and I spend way more time on them than I should. But when you notice they are your go-to, just take note. And really that's it. That's the first step, is to just notice oh, you know what? I have really been leaning onto these things to kind of avoid what's going on. You're probably overwhelmed by something, or there is some stress building, and you can bring some awareness to it. That is the first step. And then maybe you continue scrolling for a night, right? You're you know what? I'm already in this. This is what I'm doing tonight, but I'm not completely ignoring. I know that the reason I'm doing this is because of stress. So that's a shift, right? That is a first small step, a first shift. And then maybe the next night you say, you know what? Last night I gave myself that time to just check out. So today I'm going to do something that helps work through the stress a little bit, even just for 5 minutes, because 5 minutes can make a really big difference when you sit to do deep breathing, or just take 5 minutes of quiet if the reason you're feeling really overwhelmed is because you're overstimulated from so much talking every day. Then jump into your favorite spot on the couch, hit play, and enjoy your shows. Connected and not checked out. So what do you end up doing more? Checking in or checking out? Share over in the comments on the blog, or send me a message at Jessie Andrix on Instagram. Or if you want to explore this more, you can always email me, jessie@jessieandrix.com. And if you want more resources to help you take those 5 minutes to check in, make sure to click on the Resilient SLP Toolbox link in the show notes and sign up there by entering your email address, and you'll get access to a free resource library, the Resilient SLP Toolbox, where you'll find all kinds of tools to help you start reducing and managing your stress today. Thank you so much for joining in. Love and light to you.